today's video, I am going to show you how to make these super adorable amigurumi mice. These little guys right here are perfect for cat toys, for toys for the kids. If you're going to make toys for the kids, just stuffing's fine. If you're going to make toys for the cat, these are fantastic. The cats love them. Throw a little bit of catnip in with the stuffing, a bell in with the stuffing, maybe even a squeaky insert, and you have a quality toy for a fraction of the price. They work up very quickly. As you can see, this one is made with a bulkier yarn, A5, and these ones are made with a 4, a medium weight yarn. And these guys right here are more of a true amigurumi, I think, maybe more of a realistic looking mouse. And I'll show you how to make these too. And it's so simple because these ones start off the process just like these. So by the time you come to the end of these little mice, you have already completed 80% of these larger, more realistic looking mice. Welcome to Weaving Weird Studio and my creative weird life. My name is Sig, and what a pleasure it is to have you with me today. It's your interest and support that allows me to contribute new content and weekly videos. Help us all grow together by tapping the subscribe bar, notification bell, and like buttons. I look forward to your comments and always value your feedback. Now let's get started. For today's video, what you absolutely need, if you're making just like the little mouse, the little cat toy looking mouse, you're going to need your color of yarn you're going to be using. So for this mouse that I'm going to show you an example on today, I'm going to be using white. And that's all you really need, is just the one color. You're going to need your G-size hook, because the yarn you're going to be using is going to be a medium weight yarn, typically a size 4, maybe a size 5. That's getting a little bulky, but I think that would be okay. And then of course your stuffing, and then a tapestry needle, because you're going to be doing a little bit of sewing. Now if you want to add the nose, you might like to have a little pink yarn, but the nose is pretty optional. The eyes. Now, black yarn is perfect for the eyes if you don't have safety eyes. You can use safety eyes, you can use buttons, or you can use black yarn. And that's really all you need if you're just making your basic mouse. However, if you're going to make the more realistic amigurumi mouse, you're going to add a couple of additional items to your mix. You're definitely going to want your pink. You're definitely going to want your safety eyes, or your buttons, or your black yarn in which to make your eyes with. You're going to want 2 pieces of wire about 6 inches long. This is your basic jewelry wire. This is about a 20 gauge wire. You're going to want a kind of craft glue and a set of pliers. I personally like to use this set of jewelry pliers that has this nose that curves. So we're going to begin with this mouse, and I'll take you through the instructions on how to make this mouse. And once you've finished completing your mouse, you're good. That's all you need to do. However, if you want to continue on to complete a mouse that looks similar to this, we will continue on from this mouse to turn this type of mouse into this type of mouse. So basically what I'm saying is we won't start a new mouse, but instead we will follow this mouse through to its natural end, and then we will add on this mouse in order to turn it into this mouse. So I'm going to begin by making the body of the mouse, which is basically going to be in one long piece, the body right through the tail. And the way I do that is I'm going to begin with my adjustable ring. I'm going to chain 1, as you see that I've done here. And then I'm going to single crochet 4. I'm going to tighten my loop, my ring. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to join. I'm going to join with a slip stitch. And I'm going to chain 1 for the beginning of round 2. Now for round 2, I'm going to make a single crochet in that same stitch. And then the next stitch, I'm going to make 2 single crochets. So first stitch is just the one, and the second stitch is a single crochet increase. Then the next stitch, I'm going to make a single crochet. And then in the stitch after that, I'm going to make 2 single crochets. Okay, now this is an amigurumi, so I am actually doing a little tighter base stitch. My tension's a little tighter. Then I'm going to join. So far you should have something that looks like this. Next I'm going to chain 1, and that will begin round 3. Now in the same stitch, I'm going to single crochet. And then in the stitch after that, I'm going to make 2 single crochets, or in other words, a single crochet increase. Now in the stitch after that, again, I'm going to do a single crochet. And in the stitch after that, I'm going to place 2 single crochets. And then we're going to do it one more time to complete this round. Do a single crochet and stitch, and the stitch after that I'm going to do 2 single crochets, and then again I'm going to join. And then I'm going to chain 1, and we're going to begin round 4. Now in round 4 I'm going to make a single crochet in each stitch. That'll give me an end count of 9. So I'll begin in the same stitch as my chain with 1, 2, 8, and 9. And then again I'm going to join with a slip stitch as before. And then I'm going to chain 1, and I'm going to begin my round 5. Now for round 5 we're going to do a single crochet in the same stitch, and a single crochet in the next stitch, and then in the stitch after that we're going to place 2 single crochets, and we're going to do that pattern 2 more times. So 1 single crochet, 1 single crochet, and then 2 single crochets. And we'll do that one more time. Next stitch is a single crochet. Stitch after that is a single crochet. And then the next stitch, our last stitch, is going to be 2 single crochets. And again, I'm going to join. I'm going to make my chain, and I'm going to begin my round 6. And for round 6 I'm going to do a single crochet in each stitch, and at the end of round 6 that will leave me with a complete, or a total count of 12. So 1, and 12th. And then once again, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to join. And I'm going to chain 1. And we're going to begin round 7. Now for round 7, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to single crochet in the same stitch. And I'm going to single crochet 2 more times. And then in the stitch after that, I'm going to do a single crochet 2 times in that stitch. I'm going to do that pattern 2 more times. So 1, 2, and then 3, and then an increase. One, 2, and 3, and then an increase. And for those of you who don't know what I mean when I say an increase, that's basically 2 stitches in the same stitch. Next, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to join again. And I'm going to chain 1. And now this time for round 8, I'm going to make a single crochet in each stitch. And at the end of round 8, I should have a total count of 15. So 1, 2, 14, and 15. And then I'm going to join. And I'm going to make my chain 1 again. Now for round 9, I'm going to single crochet 4 times, and then I'm going to do an increase. I'm going to single crochet 4 times, and then I'm going to do an increase. I'm going to do that pattern 3 times. And again, I'm going to begin with my first single crochet in the same stitch as my chain. So 1, and final increase. And we're back around at the beginning again, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to join and then make my chain. Now for the next 2 rounds, rounds 10 through 11, I'm going to make a single crochet in each of these stitches. And so for rounds 10 and rounds 11, I will end with a total of 18 stitches for each round. And as before, when you've completed a round, join and then chain 1 and then begin your single crochets again, just as you've been doing. Now for round 12, chain 1. So in the same stitch that I did my chain in, I'm going to go ahead and I am going to single crochet. And then I'm going to make another single crochet. Next, I'm going to single crochet 2 together. So I'm going to insert my hook into the next stitch and I'm going to pull up a loop, and then I'm going to insert my hook into that next stitch, and then I'm going to pull up another loop. And then I'm going to follow through as I normally would with a single crochet. And I'm going to do that pattern 4 times. So that pattern's going to be 2 single crochets plus 2 single crochets together. So again, that's 1, 2, and then 2 together. Again, 1, 2, and then 2 together. We'll do it one more time. 1, 2, and then 2 together. And then I'm going to single crochet a single crochet in each of those last 2 stitches. And then I'm going to join. And again, I'm going to make my chain 1. Now it's at this point where we're going to actually start thinking about getting our body stuffed. If you are going to use safety eyes, now is the time to put those in. If you're going to just sew your eyes on, you can wait until the actual mouse body is completed before doing that. But for this mouse, I am going to use safety eyes, and so I'm going to go ahead and put those in now, and then I'm going to stuff the body. So now that I've got my safety eyes on and I've got my stuffing in place, and I've made sure that my seam follows the bottom line of my mouse, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move on to round 13. So I've already got my chain. And in that same stitch, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to single crochet. And then next I'm going to single crochet 2 together, because I'm going to start closing up the back end of my mouse. I'm going to do that 4 times. So that was 1. And this is 2. 3. 4. And then I'm going to single crochet my last 2 stitches together. I'm going to join. And I'm going to chain 1. So at this point you might feel that you need to throw a little more stuffing in there. That's what I'm going to do. Just kind of stuff it out a little bit as I begin to close the back end of this mouse. And then I'm going to move on to round 14. Now for round 14, I'm going to single crochet 2 together all the way around. And of course I'm going to begin in that same stitch that I chained in. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to join. And then for round 15, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to chain 1. And really, round 15 is really the beginning of the tail. And if I'm going to just be making my basic mouse, I'm going to continue to use the same color that I used on the body, so I'll just continue to chain. However, because I'm making the larger mouse, I'm going to actually switch over to the pink color for the tail. So now if I'm going to continue from here using the same color, I'm going to just reach across my opening here, I guess, is what you would call it, just to, the next stitch or so, and I would pull that closed and start chaining my tail. But because I'm moving over to the pink, I'm going to begin that using my new color. So I've cut off a little bit of a tail and I'm using my new color. And I'll weave those ends in here momentarily. And I'm going to begin to chain. Now, another little thing to make note of is if you're just doing the plain cat toy mouse, you're going to only need to chain 15. If you're doing the larger size mouse, go ahead and chain 30. So far you should have something that looks like this. Now, unless you're sewing on your eyes, and I'll show you how to do that here in just a moment. It'll be the same technique that I use to make the nose with. Okay, so to begin, we're going to go ahead and we're going to make the ears, and you're going to want to leave yourself a little bit of a tail at the beginning and a little bit of a tail at the end of your work, because both of those things are going to need to be woven in. So you want to leave yourself enough length to do that. I'm going to pull my yarn out so far, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to begin my adjustable ring. And then of course I'm going to go in and I'm going to make my chain. And then I'm going to single crochet 7. 1, 2. Now as I do this, I'm going to make a little looser stitch because these are the ears and I want it to be just a little looser. When I've gotten my 7 single crochets, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull my ears close. I want to close up the center, so I want to pull it nice and tight. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to join with a slip stitch. And I have my first ear. I'm going to make 2 of these. And when I'm making just the regular mouse, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to figure out where they go and I'm going to sew them on, just like so. You can see with this mouse right here, you got the ears sewn on. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because for the larger mouse, as you can see here, the larger mouse is going to have a little pink on the inside of it. So that's going to be an additional stitch for those of you who are making this larger mouse. So now because I am making the larger mouse, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to set this aside for a second, and I'm going to make the inside of the ear a little bit. I'm going to start off as before with my adjustable ring. I'm going to crochet it a little looser than I have been because it's my ear. I'm going to make my chain 1, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to single crochet 5. When I have my 5, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to pull my ring tight, and just as before, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to join my ring with a slip stitch. And I'm going to leave a little bit of a tail on this one because I'm going to use this one to do a little sewing also. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to place my pink ring into my larger white ring. I'm going to take this shorter end of the tail, and I'm just going to fold it up right here behind the pink. I'm going to take this longer tail and I'm going to whip stitch my inner pink to this front loop of the white part of the ear. The rest of my tail in, and I'm going to go ahead and make another one of these ears, and then I'll be ready to sew these ears on. And for those of you who are making the making the smaller mouse, your ears should already be sewn on at this point because you don't have a pink inner side. Okay, so far, if you're working on the smaller mouse, you should have something that looks like this except for the nose and the eyes if you're sewing eyes on. If you're working on the larger mouse, you should have something that looks like this so far. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to make the nose. And to make the nose, you're going to want to get yourself I don't know, maybe 6 to 10 inches of yarn. And most of this is just going to be for the weaving purposes and just to give you enough yarn to work with comfortably. You're not going to use but a little bit of it. So you're going to begin by getting your yarn. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make what is called a French knot for the nose. Okay, so if you already know what that is and you already know how to do it, by all means, go for it. For those of you who don't know, go ahead and just weave the tail end of your yarn in. In the holes and in a place where your pink is not going to show. Basically, you're just anchoring your yarn in because you're not going to be able to make a knot. Just for those of you who don't know. And then once I get it kind of anchored in there, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to take my needle, I'm going to push the yarn right through that center hole where I'm going to place my nose. And then I'm going to make my French knot. So a French knot is basically you're going to take your yarn and you're going to go ahead and you're going to take your needle and you're going to put it right here at the base of the yarn next to the fabric, and you're going to go ahead and you're going to wrap that yarn around 3 or 4 times. In this case, I'm going to wrap mine around 4 times. And then I'm going to reinsert it back into that hole. Well, actually not exactly into the middle of the hole. I'm going to pick up a little bit of the yarn so that I don't pull this needle all the way through. I have something to catch my knot on. And then I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to find one of those holes so that I can just push my needle through. It can get a little tricky. Also, in this case, since that's going to be a little tricky to pull through, I'm just going to use these pliers right here that I have. And I'm going to pull my needle through, just like so. But I'm going to be careful about how I pull that through. I don't want to pull it through. I want it to be firm, but I don't want it to pull through too quickly and too hard. Because if I do, I'll lose my knot, thus losing my nose. And that is my nose. Now, if you're going to sew on your eyes, you would basically use the French knot to make the eyes with. And so that's the same process, except your location is obviously going to be a little different. And then again, I'm going to just go ahead and I'm going to weave this end in so that I can anchor my nose. And there you have it. So if you are working on the smaller mouse, you are finished. So if you're going to use this as, let's say, an ornament, this is the best time to loop your thread through so you have a hanger for your mouse. If you're going to use it for a cat toy, it's ready to go. If you're going to use it for anything else, it's ready to go. Now, for those of you who are going to continue on as I am to make this a larger mouse, we're going to move on to the next step. The next step is going to make the forearms. Again, I'm going to use the pink yarn. And this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to make an I-cord. So I'm going to leave myself a little bit of a tail because I want to be able to weave this end in and hide it effectively. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to chain 3. So because this is going to be a 3-loop I-cord, I've got my first loop on the hook, I'm going to get my second loop on the hook, and then I'm going to get my third loop on the hook. I'm going to remove the first 2 loops from my hook, and I'm going to grab my yarn and pull that through my first loop. And then I'm going to insert my hook into my second loop, and I'm going to grab another bit of yarn and pull that through for a second loop. And then for my third loop, I'm going to insert my hook again, and I'm going to grab some of that yarn, and then I have my last loop. I'm going to do 4 rows of this. So I've completed my first row. I'm going to do it again. Be careful not to lose your loops. That's kind of a bummer when that happens. So be careful how tight you pull. Now I'm going to do it one more time with my pink. Now at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change over to my white. So I'm going to take my white, I'm going to fold my yarn over just a little bit for the color change, and I need to leave myself a little bit of a tail so I can weave that in and this doesn't get pulled out. Again, I'm going to remove my hook from the first 2. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to work that first loop in. I'm going to hold the tail down a little bit, and then I'm going to take my hook and I'm going to insert into the next loop, and I'm going to pull that next white loop through. And I'm going to insert my hook into that last loop, and then I'm going to pull my white loop through. And next, I'm going to go ahead and I am going to do 4 more rounds of the white. I'm going to pull that white through once. And then when I've completed that last final row, I'm going to basically do a regular Tunisian stitch, if you like. And so that means I'm going to leave my 3 loops on my hook, and I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to pull that yarn through that first loop. And then I'm going to yarn over again, and then I'm going to pull my hook through the next 2 loops, leaving 2 loops on the hook. I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to pull that through my last 2 loops. So I basically closed this up now. And I'm going to leave myself again a little bit of a tail for slow sewing. And this is your I-cord. And basically what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use these tails to sew my I-cord. Like, it closes on its own, but I'm going to just go ahead and use these tails to weave in the back seam of this I-cord. So it gives me a little more stability on giving me a slimmer, tighter arm, and I do double duty by actually hiding my ends in. And then this long last tail I'm going to leave for sewing my arm onto the mouse. You're going to want to make 2 of these. Now that I've gotten my arms finished, I'm just going to set them aside because I don't want to sew them on just yet. I want to get a better idea where I'd like to do my placement after I get my back legs situated. And so I'm going to do that with my white yarn, and I'm going to begin by making the hind legs. Now I'm going to make 2 hind legs, and for this one I'm going to actually work in a spiral. I'm going to begin with my adjustable ring. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make my chain, and then I'm going to single crochet 7. Six and 7. And then close my ring. And then I'm just going to continue into round 2 by making an increase in each of the next 7 stitches. So basically I'm going to single crochet 2 single crochets in each stitch, and that will leave me with a total of 14 stitches for round 2. And then next for round 3, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do a pattern of 1 single crochet in the next stitch, and then an increase in the stitch after that. I'm going to do that pattern 7 times. So I've done once, and twice, and I'm going to do it 5 more times. And when I've completed round 3, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to slip stitch. I'm going to cut myself a decent sized tail because, again, I'm going to use that tail for sewing. And so I have my 2 hind legs. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fit my hind legs at the hind end of my mouse. I'm going to figure out about where I want to have those, and that's going to be about here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch my leg on, but I'm going to leave myself a little bit of an opening, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to lightly stuff that hind leg to give it just a little bit of form. Now once you've got the hind part of the leg sewn on and stuffed, your mouse should look something like my mouse. And now we're going to get started on the rest of the leg and the feet. Now this can be a little fiddly, and this is where the wire comes in. And what we're going to want to do is make an aperture like this. I don't know if you can see that very well. It's basically 2 wire, or the wire is folded in a way that comes out like the foot with like maybe 3 toes or an impression of it. Doesn't have to be perfect, because I'll show you how it gets wrapped here in a minute. We just need the frame. So I've already done that one clearly. And how I make that is I go ahead and I just bring the 2 ends together. And then I kind of eyeball about where the middle of this kind of sort of folded length is. And then I bend my wire just so that I have a shape that's something like this. And I'm going to work on the 3 toes. And this is where it gets a little fiddly, because now what I have to do is I have to bend the wire in such a way that is going to give me my kind of 3 toes, if you will. Now if you have a better way to do this, by all means please do it. This is just kind of how I do it. And so you find that you kind of have to play with it a little bit so that you can bend it and get it the way you want to have it, the way that you think is going to work best for you. Okay, so now I have 2 feet that are pretty similar looking. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to wrap, and I'll show you how I do that. So what I do is I'm going to take my pink yarn again, and I'm just going to kind of hold it in place. And I'm going to wrap my foot. Let's see if I can show you how I do this. And I'm going to wrap my foot crisscross around those wires. Sort of like making the crisscross on the inside of the wires. I'm going to do that about, I don't know, about halfway up this bend. So I'm going to leave approximately, I'm going to say an inch or so of bare wire. Okay, so as you can see, I've got my foot woven or wrapped. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my yarn and I'm going to wrap nice and snug all the way back down my foot. Now once I've got my foot wrapped, I'm going to go ahead, and this is where it can get a little fiddly too. And go ahead and I'm going to cut myself a nice long tail, maybe 8 or 10 inches long. And I'm going to have to keep this end held. Or if I had maybe a clothespin handy, like a clothespin with a spring, I could just put that there while I thread my yarn. And I'm going to hold it in place. I'm going to hold it tight because I don't want to lose the snugness of my wrap. And I'm going to come back here and I'm going to bring my needle right up in the middle of this foot. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to wrap my yarn in between the first 2 toes. Like that. And then I'm going to bring my yarn over again and I'm going to bring it over this time to the other side. And I'm going to bring my needle through and I'm going to wrap my yarn around the other 2 toes. And then I'm going to take my pliers and I'm going to bend those tips down ever so slightly, just kind of like the nails that you naturally see on a mouse, kind of how their foot ends in that little bit of a nail. Now be careful that this doesn't slip off the top end of your wires. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just bring this around again. Wrap it around the top of the foot a couple of times. And then I'm simply going to insert my yarn. And I'm just going to weave it in through the bottom part of the foot a little bit, just to hide that end. So now once I've figured out where I want to put my legs, so your mileage is going to differ because you can see we're on this mouse, this is where I put his legs. This yarn happens to be just a little heavier. I believe it's like a size 5 bulky weight yarn. And so with this 4 or medium weight yarn, my mouse is a little smaller. And so I've placed the legs a little differently. So I figure where I want my legs, and then either I eyeball or I sort of mark the spot with a pin, the general location. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to now remove where I've put my legs, and I'm going to put a little bit of that epoxy right into that hole. And then I'm going to reinsert my leg. Now, a little bit of a pro tip is you want to make sure that you first decide where you want to put your legs, and then you want to put your leg in, because that's going to create a little bit of a hole, a little bit of a guide for your leg Because if you don't have that first, you're going to have glue and you're going to be trying to fight your leg through the stuffing, and you don't really want that. That's not optimal. That'll get messy, and you run the risk of messing up your work that you've already spent so much time on. So it doesn't take much of the epoxy. Just a bit of a dab, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to reinsert my legs right back into that hole again. And even when you know you have where you have your hole, it can still be a little fiddly. So just take your time and give it a minute to dry according to the instructions of the epoxy that you're working with. But make sure you have it, before it dries, make sure that you have it sort of in the general location of where you want it. So you can bend and fix your feet position a little later, but you want to make sure that your base of your leg is stable. And then next, you're going to just go ahead and you're going to sew on your arms. And then of course, if there is a little bit of an embellishment you want to put with it, perfect. So I'd like to thank you for joining me today, but now's the time for me to say goodbye. So until I see all you wonderful and creative fiber artists again, stay crafty, stay amazing, and above all, keep weaving your weird. Bye-bye now.